Welcome back to Legalese 123, where we are covering cases across America. Hello and welcome back to Legalese 123. I'm your host, Missy K. Guess what? It is March. Yay! It is my birthday month. Yay! Do not guess how old I am. When you say that you're that old, then you're that old. Anyways, my screen's acting goofy. You can see some with the background. Anyways, lovies, I hope you are doing well. I hope you had a great weekend. I went and saw the Wuthering Heights new movie that was out. And boy, I took a little bit of liberties. If you have read the book, it does skew a little slightly from there. They omitted some characters and they sort of adapted it towards Kathy and Heathcliff. Wow, the scenes were very dramatic. So I didn't know anything going into it. And I was like, wow, this reminds me of Gone with the Wind. And it absolutely did. It had a lot of researching it afterwards, they used a lot of cinematic liberties from Gone with the Wind and incorporated in here. I thought it was very well done. No spoilers or anything for those who might want to go and watch it. It is definitely worth a watch in the theaters, and you are left bewildered. So I guess it depends on how old you are, because it resonates with a whole bunch of age groups, especially women. Like if you're young, you're like, oh, Heathcliff, you're such a romantic man. But if you're older, you're like, wow, that's a toxic relationship. What a manipulative relationship on both parts, So it has a balance there, but it was definitely worth it. There were some lulls and it wasn't super action-packed, but definitely pulled on your emotions. So if you're looking for an emotional sort of pull, that is one to go see. Highly recommend. Also out this weekend was the Bridgerton series, season 4. That has been out. No spoilers there, but if you haven't seen all of the season, definitely go watch it. Just a variety of different things. So, everybody knows that Penelope is Lady Whistledown, and Lady Whistledown is now changing hands. Who's the latest Miss Whistledown? Who's going to be the next Bridgerton to get married? I have my thoughts. So we'll wait a couple of weeks before I share who that might be. Usually they say whoever has a glow up in that season is the next person. And it is an unlikely character. Some people are leaning towards one. I'm leaning towards a different. So that will be fun. But you're not here for that content. You're here for the Kouri Richins trial. It is day 6 in the Kouri Richins trial. What have you learned so far? What has astounded you so far? What have you come to any conclusions thus far? I am still on the fence. Last week's shenanigans were, jury tampering. I didn't have that on my bingo card. I call it jury tampering. That means that, anytime somebody does something that's related to the jury, I call it jury tampering. A person going out there and sketching the jurors and writing down their numbers, big no. Don't mess with the jury. If I have any advice to give anybody, you don't go look at a juror, you don't talk to a juror, you avoid a juror at all costs. Why? You don't want to have a mistrial, right? The state, the defense, everybody's put in so much time, effort, money into this, weeks and weeks and weeks. This has been going on for years. The Eric Richins family would like to get justice one way or the other, whether it depends on whatever happens. You don't want to mess with the jury so that it becomes a mistrial. You just don't. Even though Ms. Nestor said she is going to file for a mistrial. Okay. What else? Then there was on Friday, the stream and everything got yeeted because apparently there was a undercover officer who was coming to testify, and the prosecution failed to alert the court of this person and his status. And so I believe that he did get caught on camera. People who were streaming or recording were asked to delete that. But, the internet is interneting. They can contact everybody. So hopefully that person is protected, but we'll see. All right, so we are day 6. They had some issues this morning, and now we are talking about a doctor. So we are where we are. Is this technically witness number well, 21 was, oh, hang on. My notes are all over the place. Witness 20 was Marco Greacachalala. He was the one that downloaded the phones. But there was actually real 20 was the undercover officer, which we don't have that information yet. And so 21, I'm going to say undercover officer. So here we are, witness 22. Let's go. Let's just go. Let's get into it.
Let's invite Dr. Christensen in.
Okay, so 22 is Dr. Christensen.
Doctor, if you would step in front of Brittany, we'll get you sworn in, please.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the matter before the court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, subject to the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Thank you. Have a seat.
Drag that chair wherever you need to.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're going to bump her up.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Can you please state your full name and spell your last name for the record?
Sure. Eric Dean Christensen. Last name Christensen.
Sir, are you employed?
I'm currently self-employed.
Did you were recently the chief medical examiner for the state of Utah?
Yes, I retired in 2024.
How long were you the chief medical examiner?
I began working as a chief medical examiner in July of 2016.
Did you then supervise Dr. Ulmer?
I did.
Are you familiar with the death investigation for Eric Richins?
I am.
And how are you familiar with it?
I'm familiar with it from discussions with Dr. Ulmer over the time she was evaluating the case, as well as my subsequent review of the medical examiner's file.
Did you have an occasion to talk to Corey Richins?
I did.
Okay. Have you testified as an expert in forensic pathology before?
I have many times.
Okay. I would like to first talk to you about cause and manner of death and the statutory requirement for that process. When you have a death investigation, could you please explain how, I guess, what the manner of death choices are and what's the purpose of that, and just
Sure.
describe that for the jury.
Okay. So two of the things that the medical examiner is tasked with doing under statute is determining the cause of death and the manner of death. The manner of death is a box that we check on a death certificate that is essentially a one-word synopsis of the circumstances surrounding that person's death. The options available to us, we can certify that a death is a natural death. It can be an accident, it can be a suicide, it can be a homicide, or it can be, in Utah, the death certificate reads could not be determined, what most commonly.
Right. The other doctor went over this. So why are we here? Why are we going over this? Do it again.
Undetermined. And in those settings, undetermined essentially means we don't have enough information to decide which of those other four options best fits.
What's the purpose of that whole exercise?
Again, it's something that's on the death certificate, and so it's part of the vital statistics function that the medical examiner's office provides. All of the deaths that we investigate and deaths that we certify provide information then back to the state. Sometimes that's public safety, sometimes it's Department of Health. Other people will utilize that death certificate data to evaluate the ways that people are dying within the state and attempt to intervene to minimize those types of deaths.
In this particular case, were you stuck between the first four you mentioned, such that you ended up picking undetermined or cannot be determined?
Yes, again, and just to be clear, I didn't sign the death certificate, Dr. Ulmer did, but certainly was involved in discussions around that. And the determination, making a determination of undetermined means that we generally can't decide between two. In this case, I would say actually generally most cases where we certify death as undetermined, it's because in overdose deaths that we certify as undetermined, it's because I don't know enough about the person's own intent. We see it frequently in the setting, for example, of people that may have depression or other mood disorders, and maybe even prior suicide attempts, as well as they may have substance use history that they use to self-medicate their depression and things. And so if someone overdoses on a drug that they're known to abuse, but they also have depression, if they don't leave a note or something else, then I don't really have a means of, telling just from looking at that, did they mean to do this, or is it accidental, incident to their normal drug use? That's the most common scenario in which we certify a death as undetermined. In this case,
Right. So, they don't know Eric, and based upon Kouri, whatever Kouri said, right? Now, I don't know if the Richins family also had a hand in that. It sounds like they did, but I don't know for sure. Maybe they'll get into that. But you just never know a person's psyche. I mean, obviously, if they're a known drug user, then obviously, one could lead to another, and, they accidentally overdosed, etc. So they just don't know Eric enough to determine whether or not he did this himself or somebody else did this to him. And they're not the police. But I'm not sure why we're here again. I'm not sure why this witness is back, why this witness is on the stand. What are they going to tell us that the other one didn't?
specific, we did not really have any concerns about suicide in this case, but there had been concerns related to our office that perhaps someone had done something to provide this to him, and that he didn't just take it himself. But we didn't know. We had no idea how he got the stuff into his system, and so with that, we were left with undetermined.
So the choice there would have been, as opposed to accident and suicide, it was accident and homicide.
Correct.
Okay. Could you describe for the jury the way in which the body processes substances? In particular, I'm looking at opiates and the different ways they can be ingested.
Okay, there's a lot in that question.
Yeah, sorry.
Opiates can be consumed in a lot of ways. Even things, for example, like pills that you might get from your doctor for hydrocodone or oxycodone, opioid-related medications, those can be just taken by mouth as they're usually prescribed, but it's not uncommon for us to see people take those pills, crush them up, dissolve them in liquid, draw them up into a syringe and inject them. It's also not uncommon for us to see those pills crushed and then heated, and people inhale the vapors from that, primarily as a means of getting the drug into their system more quickly. And there's lots of other reported ways that people use things, but those are probably the most three common ways that we see pills abused. People may directly inject just about any drug that's available in liquid form. Fentanyl certainly is. Fentanyl is also available in patches and lozenges and other forms. And so it can get into the system in a lot of different ways. In terms of what your body does with it, fentanyl in specific is metabolized primarily by your liver. There's what they call a CYP enzyme that is primarily responsible for the metabolism of fentanyl in your liver. That metabolism is felt to be mostly determined by how much blood is flowing through your liver. So the more blood flow you have to the liver, the more rapidly it will be metabolized. There are other ways that sometimes people will metabolize it more slowly, but based on what specific genes they have for metabolism, for that metabolizing enzyme, but mostly it's a function of how much blood is flowing through the liver. And it's then converted very quickly, has a very short half-life in the body, minutes, and is converted to a substance called norfentanyl, which then is eliminated in the urine. Don't know if that
Once it, yeah, that's great. Thank you. Once it gets into the blood, then what's the intoxicating effect? I mean, how does that function?
Sure. So fentanyl in the blood distributes throughout the body. It's absorbed either through the mucosa, the lining of the mouth, or directly into veins, whatever. It gets into the bloodstream. And then from there, it gets into the brain, it gets into other organs, where it exerts its primary effects on the brain and the central nervous system, where it causes respiratory depression and or cessation. Can also cause central nervous system depression, meaning it alters the way you think, can make you groggy or less than normally responsive and things. But its primary lethal effects are related to its effects on your breathing. And it is dose dependent, so a higher dose will do this more readily than a lower dose, but it will either slow or stop your breathing, and sometimes that has lethal consequences.
The lethal consequences then are from stopping breathing?
Yes.
Okay. And when you stop breathing, death ensues. Does that metabolizing process continue to happen, or does that stop as well?
Generally, it will stop. there are, once your circulation stops and blood is no longer flowing through the liver, you're not going to have that continued metabolism through the liver. But there are a number of changes, large number of changes that are described in the way fentanyl is present in the body after death, that are related to changes in the pH of the body as you start to decompose, and other things that will influence what those levels look like.
When a person, I'm going to give you a hypothetical. So we have a decedent, and in the blood, you and the lab personnel determine that there is quetiapine below the threshold of their tools. There is fentanyl at 15 nanograms per milliliter. And then in the gastric fluid, there is quetiapine at about 16,000 nanograms per milliliter and fentanyl at 20,000 nanograms per milliliter. My question then is, based on that hypothetical, is there sufficient information for you to determine whether those two drugs were taken simultaneously or sequentially, and if sequentially, which one came first?
I can't tell you that.
Yeah.
There's just not enough information.
Okay. I was like, you can't say that because the other doctors testified to that. You can't say whether they were taken simultaneously or one or the other, what have you. Again, this is a repeat witness. I'm not sure.
No, you can't derive that information from those values.
Okay. I just wanted to follow up. You said there's drowsiness as a consequence of taking, I assume, opioids of any type, fentanyl.
I guess this is like a backup witness. Like if you didn't believe the medical examiner, and then you didn't believe the toxicologist, here's another person to bolster your claim. Or just maybe just like another person to say, hey, I was above her, I was her supervisor, and we both came to this determination that it was undetermined.
It all just happens to be stronger.
Yes, fentanyl on a weight by weight basis, 1 milligram of fentanyl compared to 1 milligram of oxycodone or of morphine is the usual reference standard because it is the classic opiate medication. Fentanyl is just much, much more potent, 80 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
So you said there's depression of the respiratory system, drowsiness. How quickly might one start to metabolize, given the fact that they take some fentanyl and it causes their death? Would they be able to metabolize at least some of it?
You would expect so, yes.
Okay.
I mean, there are a number of overdose deaths reported in the literature where the death occurs so quickly, and these are primarily in the setting of intravenous drug use, that no metabolism is able to be recorded because they just die too quickly. But generally speaking, we see some level of metabolism.
Okay.
Let me see. I wanted to. But someone takes an overdose, a fatal dose of fentanyl. It's not then instantaneous death.
It depends partly. I mean, generally
Right.
speaking, no. It's a function of the dose and the route of administration. So it's going to get into the system more quickly as an IV. Or
Right.
smoking will generally get it there pretty quickly as well. But ingestion would delay that somewhat. But however it gets into the body is going to determine how quickly that happens.
In this case, we have the
Okay. So we know. So you're like, okay, did Eric get a shot or did he ingest it? We know that he ingested it because it was found in his stomach contents, at least the quetiapine, but I believe that the fentanyl also was in his stomach as well. So he ingested it
two things, I think. One
versus
is
being
there's some
smoking it or
fentanyl
were
in
injected.
the stomach, the 20,000 nanograms.
Yes.
And also a measurement of, I know I'm saying it incorrectly, acetyl fentanyl.
Acetyl fentanyl, yes.
Does that information help you determine how it was ingested in this case?
It's suggestive that it's an oral ingestion. The presence of a large amount of fentanyl in the stomach, sort of the rough equivalent of several milligrams by volume is suggests that it was taken by that route, but there's not any way to definitely know that. There is some literature that suggests that the stomach will concentrate it, regardless of where it's from, but it is suggestive of that. And the presence of acetylfentanyl in the stomach is also consistent with, is more consistent with this being illicit fentanyl than otherwise. Acetylfentanyl is a variant of fentanyl that is, in our office, we've only seen it in the setting of illicitly manufactured fentanyl.
When a body comes in for autopsy, in this case, Mr. Richins' body comes in, is it routine to check for injection sites?
Yes.
And
In this case in particular, there was visible pulmonary edema described at the scene, foam coming out of the mouth, and that is most commonly in somebody who didn't drown or have a history of heart failure is concerning for an opiate overdose, and so we would in that case do a thorough check for those.
oh,
for
injection sites, and none found.
Again, I did not do the exam. None are described, and none were discussed by Dr. Ulmer.
Okay.
And I didn't see any in the photographs.
When you, in cases where you've seen an overdose death, particularly an accidental overdose death where you suspected inhalation, what's the sort of evidence that you would expect to see?
I'm not sure what you mean, inhalation of the substance?
Of fentanyl or opiates.
Yeah, they all kind of look the same from that regard. You may see evidence that they've been smoking. Sometimes you see little burns on their fingers or other things from heating it up to smoke, because they're not actually smoking it in the same way that you smoke a cigarette where you light it on fire and then you're inhaling the smoke. What actually is happening is that drug is being heated up and vaporized and you're inhaling the vapors.
So in those cases, do you tend to see evidence of that heating up? That is tinfoil or torches? Or
Certainly, yes, those things can be present at the scene.
Okay.
Commonly are seen at the scene.
Okay. Now, is it common for the people who are left behind to call the ME's office to find out what's happening in the case of their deceased person?
I wouldn't say it's common, but it's not uncommon. I mean, I spend a lot of time, most days I was in the office speaking with family members.
Typically, that would be whoever did the autopsy would be talking to the person who's calling?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Ulmer retired in January of 2023?
Yeah, technically, her last day of work was the end of December of 22.
Okay. And did you receive a call from Kouri Richins then?
I did, subsequent to her retirement.
And did you return her call?
I believe I didn't return her call. I believe she was just put on hold and then connected with me.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to listen to a recording of that phone call?
Yes, I'm not sure where it came from either, but yeah.
Is it consistent with your recollection of that phone call?
I did not have any independent recollection of it until I heard it, but yes, it's me on the phone call.
Okay. And have you had a chance to look at the transcript of it?
I have.
Okay. And is that accurate to your,
Yes.
when you listen to the
Yes,
tape?
it appears to be.
Okay. State would off.
All right, then. Okay, again, I was like, what's the purpose of this witness? Like, the state has been very good. They've been very methodical about what witnesses they're putting in and why and what have you. I can't imagine that we just have a throwaway witness. So I failed to mention in the beginning of my stream, what are we hoping to look for this week? I want text messages. I want all the digital forensics to come in. I want text messages. I want emails. I want Google searches. I want jailhouse calls. I want the walk the dog letter. That's what I'm expecting this week. So, phone call between Doctor and Kouri.
States Exhibit 2-60 and 2-61T.
Let's see what we get into.
He's reviewed it. Certainly we could ask questions if he needs his recollection refreshed. I think we could move to admit at that point. But if the state would
I think the state's admitting it as evidence of defendants' words and statements in the relevant time frame.
I understand. Okay.
And so, okay.
We'd ask permission to publish it then if it's offered and admitted.
So 2-60 is the audio recording, correct?
Correct.
And 2-61T is the transcript.
Correct, Your
Okay.
Honor.
Those two are admitted. Scott, give me just a moment here, sir. Give that a try.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to listen to this. It's about 9 minutes long, and then I will ask you 3 questions regarding it. Okay. Thank you. Can we advance it 30 seconds?
Thank you
The
so
first
much.
30 seconds.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to transfer you right now, okay? Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I'm not hearing.
What are we gonna learn?
All right, no problem. Let's start over.
Oh, this
We're-
looks
we're,
like it's
we're
gonna
getting
be
closer.
good. Look at her face.
Scott, if you would disconnect and reconnect on your end, I'll do the same on mine.
I'm going to transfer you right now, okay? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hey, this is Corey Richins. Hey, I just have some quick questions for you. I'm just trying to understand the toxicology report, and I promise I won't take up a ton of your time.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Can you just kind of explain to me, I guess, she was saying that this kind of supplemental report, I guess, was left out of the first autopsy, and so nothing has really changed. Do you have it in front of
Right.
you?
I do. Yeah, I got the file here.
Scott, did we drop that again?
Yes. No.
All right, I apologize, folks. Let's try that again.
Dang it, we're just getting to the
Scott,
juicy
if you
part.
disconnect from the system. Thank you. Then reconnect, please.
Technical issues already.
Do any additional microscope?
I'm going to transfer you right so much. Thank you so much.
Is that Chris?
Hey, this is Corey Richins. Hey, I just have some quick questions for you. I'm just trying to understand the toxicology report, and I promise I won't take up a ton of your time.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Can you just kind of explain to me, I guess, she was saying that this kind of supplemental report, I guess, was left out of the first autopsy, and so nothing has really changed. Do you have it in front of
Right.
you?
I do. Yeah, I got
Okay.
the file here.
So can
Yeah, so
you,
just so you know, so we issue supplemental reports, like if once the original report's issued, if we do any additional testing, if we do any additional microscopic examination, anything like that, then we include that. And we issue a supplemental report to include that additional information. And sometimes it does change the cause or manner, but in this case, it didn't.
okay, it was just like extra testing done?
Extra tox testing, yeah. So originally the testing, the only toxicology testing that was done was on blood. And so then this was additional testing on stomach contents.
Okay, and so is there difference in that, I guess?
Well, they just tell you different things in the sense of, it tells you something about what, was it, is it been there a long time? Is this something the person's been using for a long time? Is it
Okay.
something they ate? Is it something they, injected? Is it, whatever? And there's different things you can learn by looking at different substances. I mean, we fully expected to find it in the stomach. It's just a question of what was there.
So does this tell you, like, if it was like injected, if he ate it, is that what this, can you tell from this report?
Not definitively. I mean, it seems like, with what the amount that's there, that it probably was ingested. Probably taken by mouth.
Okay, and so the 15 ng, like, is that like a substantial amount? Is that like a trace?
That's a lot of fentanyl in the blood. Yeah, and that's, people die with half that amount or less in their system.
Okay, so that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
So what's the next one down, the norfentanyl? What is?
It's a metabolite of fentanyl. It's what your body changes fentanyl into after you take it.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay. And then, sorry, just the third one, the acetyl. I don't know how you say that.
Acetyl fentanyl.
Oh.
Yeah, that's just it's a form of, it's a variant of fentanyl that is usually only present in the setting of illicitly manufactured fentanyl.
Illicit manufactured, like a pharmacy?
No. Like a lot of most fentanyl that we see that ends up leading people to die these days is related to fentanyl that's manufactured by drug cartels as opposed to by pharmaceutical companies.
Oh, good lord! So this is like more of like a cartel. No, I mean that's not what it is.
You call this the street fentanyl as opposed to
Prescription.
fentanyl.
Okay, I see. And then is the ethanol? Is that alcohol?
That's alcohol. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and is that like the 279? Is that kind of like a substantial amount, or is that like one drink? Is that 5 drinks?
You can't tell how much it is, and in this case, since this testing was sent, quite a long time after the original autopsy, most likely that's related to, postmortem change, but it could be stuff that he drank. There's not really a way to sort that out. It could be related to decomposition of the stomach contents, or it could be related to stuff he drank. But either way, in the stomach contents, there's no way to know what that level means in terms of, if that was a blood level, that would be the same as a 0.28, which would be, that person would be pretty substantially intoxicated. But because it's gastric contents, you could in theory pull something out and it would be, 100% ethanol, depending on if they just drank a stomach full of, if they just drank a bunch of Everclear or something else.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really tell you much about how much they drank or what they drank or anything like that.
I gotcha.
In the stomach, and it's not present in his blood. So
I gotcha. Okay. So it's not present in the blood, just the gastric or whatever.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then just the last one. What is quetiapine?
Quetiapine is an antipsychotic medication. It's called Seroquel.
Okay. I gotcha.
It's a prescription, mental health medication that's prescribed for different things.
I gotcha. Okay. And it has like 16,000?
16,000 nanograms per milliliter. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is that, quite a bit? Like,
That's a big number, but it doesn't really mean that much. A nanogram is a millionth of a gram, and a gram is not very big. So even 16,000 of them is not a huge amount.
Okay. Is there could those have been mixed, or is that not kind of a
Could what be mixed?
quetiapine and the fentanyl? Or is that a normal, I guess, drug thing? I don't know.
It's not, most of the time if we see those together, it's because somebody was taking quetiapine as a prescribed medication and they were abusing fentanyl. But there's do you have any indication he was abusing fentanyl?
No, that's why all of this is just what the heck is this and going on? So I guess that's why I'm confused just about all of this, honestly. So I don't know. So, I know it doesn't mean anything now, but just kind of something for me to, try and figure out, I guess.
Yeah.
So something I'm wrestling with is the quetiapine, right? She has I'm playing devil's advocate on both sides, right? She has the prescription of quetiapine. If she did allegedly what they're saying that she did, that she poisoned him with the fentanyl and the quetiapine, whatever, why would you keep the prescription around? Why would you keep that bottle around? Wouldn't you get rid of it? She had plenty of time to destroy evidence, right? Then secondly, on the flip side, if let's just say he was the one that did it, he took the quetiapine, he took the fentanyl together, etc. Why? Because the fentanyl itself is they said is going to go ahead and give you that effects right away, slow down your breathing, etc. What do you need the quetiapine for? Just some thoughts.
And then I'm assuming the acetophen, is that like an aspirin or something?
Acetaminophen, that's just fentanyl. Yeah.
Oh, that's fentanyl too?
No, that's Tylenol.
Oh, Tylenol. I was like, holy shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So just like Tylenol, caffeine. And then the naloxone, I'm assuming, is just something that they gave him while he was here?
Probably would be my guess. It'd be, somebody that's unresponsive. It's a very common thing for EMS to give people.
Okay. Okay. No, that works. So I was just trying to figure out, if this is anything different, if we found out anything new with this.
Oh, come on.
Pause there. It's okay. We'll fix it. Scott, don't change anything. Okay. It seems like if I do this, press play.
Yeah, like she said, it doesn't change anything in the cause or manner of death. It's still, definitely, death from fentanyl intoxication, and we still don't know how he got it into him.
Yeah. And is that anything you could ever find out? If it was, do people normally eat that? Take it? So, is that something you shoot?
It's not usually something people eat. Well, that's not even true anymore. So with illicitly manufactured stuff, sometimes people take pills that have that. So yeah, these days you can't really tell.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate your time. I do. Thank you very much. And
If you have other questions, don't hesitate to give me a call.
Okay. Awesome. What was your name?
Dr. Christensen.
Oh, Christensen. Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Okay, I just have to find out when this was. So sadly, I'm going to have to go back, but we'll go back again. Okay, let's see if I can see. It was January 12th, 2023. Okay. Okay.
But I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Yay. Got back. Okay, so transcript.
I'd like to follow up on a couple things there. You mentioned to her about if the gastric contents were blood, it would be 0.28
Yes.
blood alcohol, but it's in fact not in the blood, it's in the gastric. And so there's no way of conveniently figuring out how much it is, much less its source.
That's correct.
Are you okay? Do you need a glass of
I've
water?
got water. I'm good.
Okay. You mentioned in that call, at first you said, we typically don't see it eaten, but you can't say that anymore. Could you expound upon that? How, in cases where there's pills, is it common to see them eaten?
So yeah, okay, a few things about that. So over time, over I'd say the last 20 years, we saw a rather dramatic change in the deaths we saw related to fentanyl. Until the early 2010s, pretty much all fentanyl deaths were related to prescription fentanyl being used incorrectly, most commonly by healthcare providers and other people who would, have access to it and would abuse it. And it was just not a common thing. We just didn't see a lot of deaths related to that. Once patches became available, which were designed, primarily for, treating cancer patients with bad pain and things of that nature, people became creative with how they use those patches as well. Some people would, put on multiple patches, or they would put on patches and a heating pad to sort of drive it into their system more quickly. Seen people that would smoke them, people that would insert them into their rectum, people that would chew them up. Sometimes we find, multiple chewed up patches in the stomach. And certainly other ways have been described as well with patches. But once the illicit drug supply and primarily the heroin supply came to be, either augmented and or replaced by fentanyl, we saw, we saw much less in the way of the prescription abuse and much more of the illicit stuff being used. And some of that was in the form of what was heroin. Most heroin in this area was black tar heroin, which then became ended up having fentanyl within it. So people that had been heroin users would still be using what they thought was heroin, and it would have fentanyl in it, many times mixed with heroin. Eventually, in some cases was not mixed at all, but was just straight fentanyl. Counterfeit fentanyl pills, counterfeit oxycodone pills. Fentanyl in pill form, made to look like it was an oxycodone pill, also became a fairly common thing. And as we discussed before with other pills, people will abuse those in different ways. Sometimes they can ingest them directly, but they can also grind them up and inject them or smoke them. So they can be.
Okay, so when we were talking about the Robert Crozier, who was on the stand on Friday, who was the person who supplied the pills to Carmen, and then Carmen gave them to Kouri, their testimony. Okay. Now, he was very adamant that he did not sell fentanyl. He was very adamant. And I wasn't sure whether or not I bought it. But now, kind of flipping back, was hearing what he has to say, plus hearing some of what you people have to say, is that I guess at some point, obviously I'm not a drug user, so I don't know. So all this is fascinating to me as to the many ways that people, obviously, if somebody wants to abuse a substance, they will go to any lengths to do it, right? To get it into their system. So one of the things that they were talking about was that illicit fentanyl was made to look like oxycodone or oxycontin, and therefore this could probably be what had happened, was that perhaps it looked like oxy pills of some sort, and that's what Robert Crozier said that he sold to Carmen, and then Kouri may not have known that it was fentanyl. The only problem that I have with that is that Robert Crozier said that all of his stuff was prescription pills. This is illicit stuff. So did Robert Crozier get something bad from somebody else, and that he thought was pills that were prescribed? See, like the chain just keeps getting, the links are just like not working. Regardless of the situation, it doesn't matter. Eric Richins died of a fentanyl in his system. And how did it get there? So those are just my thoughts.
Used in all kinds of different ways, but in the phone call, what I'm referring to, we mostly did not see anybody eating fentanyl before illicit fentanyl. With the advent of these counterfeit pills, we saw it somewhat, more often, or would assume that was the route. But we even then, most of the time, don't know how somebody gets the fentanyl into them, even if they have it on their person.
In this case, there certainly wasn't any injection sites noted.
No.
Are there tests, forensic tools that could aid in the determination of whether one is a chronic or habitual or a naive user?
It's a good question. So there's been a lot published on the assessment of fentanyl levels in people that have died, and ways that you can try and parse some of those things out. The bottom line for all of them is you can't look at a number in isolation and make a determination based on, this is a lethal level, so this level has to be the cause of their death. There are certainly people who, become tolerant. Most opioids, people will develop tolerance over time, and so they can have very, very high levels and not have the same effect as someone who doesn't take it all the time. We had no history in this case in particular to suggest long-term chronic use, but also didn't know. And there are things that could potentially be looked at to try and assess longer-term use. The only published data I've seen around that revolves around comparing the fentanyl to the norfentanyl level, and levels where that ratio is more than 8 are believed to be consistent with an acute intoxication. Ratios of 2.5 or less are consistent with chronic use. In this case, that ratio is about 4.6, so it's right in between. So it doesn't really provide us helpful information either way.
That's the ratio
Right,
between
can't
fentanyl and its metabolite,
Correct.
as you find it.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of pseudo-allergic reaction to opioids?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury a little bit about that?
Sure.
Okay. So this gets to the breakfast sandwich, right? So people were wondering, so it's been alleged that when he ate the breakfast sandwich that had the fentanyl in it or whatever, we don't know what it was tainted with, but that he had an allergic reaction to it. So this comes in this form. So I'm going to back it up just a smidge because this is very important.
Have you ever heard of pseudo-allergic reaction to opioids?
Yes.
Could you tell the jury a little bit about that?
Sure. Most allergic reactions are because the body has developed an immune response to some specific protein substance, whether it's nuts or grasses or whatever, pollens of different types. And your body reacts to that and triggers a reaction through your immune system that elicits what we typically think of as allergy symptoms that can range everywhere from, stuffy head all the way up to anaphylaxis and death. In the setting of opiates do not elicit a true allergic response, but there are many people that take opiates who have an allergic-like reaction, but it's because the drugs themselves are directly triggering those cells that cause those symptoms as opposed to going through the immune system route. And so some people will, that chronically take opiates and opioids for pain, will pre-medicate or medicate around the same time with things like Benadryl and other things to minimize those symptoms because they know they have that reaction. Certainly most people that take them do not have that reaction, but some do. And that's
if one didn't know and one took some opiate, could they have hives and those sorts of allergic-like responses?
Yes.
Given all the symptoms that you talked about, the lungs, the edema, and the data from NMS labs, do you have any concern about the cause of death in this particular case?
No.
And the 15 nanograms, as you explained to Corey Richins, was a lot.
Yes, it's well within the range of levels that we see in people that die from fentanyl.
Do you remember when that phone call took place?
Do I remember what?
When that phone call took place?
I don't off the top of my head.
Okay. Does your office take notes when you receive calls and reply to calls?
Yes.
Okay.
That changed a little bit over the time I was there. It used to be we'd get a little scrap of paper with a note written on it, return this call. We turned that into a digital log before I retired, but yes.
Would it help to look at one of those notes to refresh your recollection as to when the call took place?
Sure.
And approach the witness.
Of course.
It does it on the front of the transcript, doesn't it? I went back. It said January 12th, 2023.
Yes, this is from the log. Just said that an incoming call came to me from Kouri Richins, and she had questions, and that this is my notes
And so what day did that phone call?
on January 12th of 2023, a couple weeks after Dr. Ulmer's retirement.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Could I get some more water?
Of course.
Thank you.
Dr.
Good
Christensen.
We've spoken before. I'm going to ask you some follow-up questions to Mr. Burmisters.
Sure.
I'll start off with that final thing that Mr. Burmister showed you. You indicated that you would take calls from different individuals, correct?
That's correct.
And did you receive other calls in this case from law enforcement?
I believe I did, yes. Mhm.
Would it refresh your recollection, or do you recall a call around the same time in this case?
I don't recall the timing of it.
I'm going to approach you with the same case notes. And it's that first one.
Yes, uh-huh.
And did you in fact receive a call before Ms. Richins?
Yes, the day before.
And was that law enforcement?
It was.
A mental report?
Yes.
Okay. And either your recollection or what's in your notes, do you recall if most of the questions were the same that Ms. Richins asked you on the 12th?
I don't have any specific recollection, but my general recollection was that we discussed the supplemental tox findings.
Perfect. I'll take that back. Now, the questions that we just heard Ms. Richins ask you, very similar to what we're asking today, correct?
Yes.
I'd like to talk to you about the allergen discussion you just had. You indicated that perhaps an individual could have a reaction like hives.
Yes.
If someone is allergic, in this case to an opioid, as you indicated, does that allergy disappear
I'm not sure what you mean. Does it go away over time?
over time or within a certain amount of time? Or
I mean, allergies certainly are things that can fluctuate. People can receive treatment and their responses to different things will go away.
were there hives on Mr. Richins' body, to your recollection?
No.
We were talking about illicit fentanyl and counterfeit pills
Yes.
containing traces of fentanyl.
Milligram amounts.
Okay. Now, the tablets that or pills that would contain these traces, what kind of pills would those be? Generally.
Objection. The discussion, if we're talking OxyContin, is that what you're saying?
I've not said it. I've just said pills.
Okay. Well, there's no pills that they have that you can make.
Would you provide a little more foundation for your question? So we know what we're talking about.
Absolutely. Your testimony just now was that in your experience, you started to see that fentanyl or fentanyl overdoses were coming in through your office, correct?
Correct.
And in those overdoses, you gathered information. And because you would see that there was a presence of acetyl, I say that right? Acetyl fentanyl?
Acetyl fentanyl. Acetyl is also fine.
Okay, acetyl fentanyl. that was more likely a result of illicit fentanyl, correct?
So it is a form of fentanyl that in some cases there were a variety over time of different fentanyl variants that were developed primarily in response to controlled substance legislation. If fentanyl is outlawed, then we'll add an acetyl group to that molecule and then it's no longer controlled. And so we can distribute that as a non-controlled substance. And then that one gets controlled. And so then, there were dozens of variants of fentanyl that were developed over time. Acetyl fentanyl was one of the more common ones that we saw early in this wave of progression, but it was one that we saw not infrequently.
Now with that, what was the acetyl fentanyl contained in usually in your experience?
I don't recall ever having seen acetyl fentanyl as a in a substance form in any of our specific cases.
Because it was always inside whatever pill or however it was administered, correct?
I don't even know if it was pill administered. I don't know.
Or injection.
Or I don't know how we would see it in people, but I don't recall ever seeing that correlate with a specific pill that we had tested that was shown to contain that. I know generally the crime lab identified acetyl fentanyl in some pills, but I don't recall a specific instance in my casework where those two were correlated.
Describe counterfeit pills.
Counterfeit pills are essentially illicitly manufactured pills, and sometimes very sophisticatedly, where people will buy the same kind of a pill press that a drug manufacturer uses, and they put their stuff into it and press pills that look very, very similar to legitimate prescription pills. The most common counterfeit pills that we've seen have been fake 30 milligram oxycodone pills that, when tested, contained only fentanyl. And there are also some benzodiazepine pills, things like Valium and Xanax and other things where those, what look like Xanax pills, have also contained fentanyl.
And you just indicated two different things, that in some instances, it was purely fentanyl. Those pills contained only fentanyl, correct?
Correct.
And then there were other times where perhaps they were still traces, or there were still the other benzos, for example?
Those would be different pills. I don't know.
Sure.
I'm not aware of anywhere it was both fentanyl and benzos, or, made to look like benzos that didn't have. We've seen counterfeit benzodiazepine pills and counterfeit oxycodone pills, both of which contained only fentanyl.
Correct. Now, in this case, you were provided, or your office rather, was provided with a hydrocodone bottle, correct?
Correct.
Now, that bottle you keep in your office, correct?
We do, until the case is done. Eventually it's discarded, but yes.
You talked about would it be fair to say that fentanyl, right now you discussed how you would find acetylfentanyl, and that was one part of it, and then you had to make sure that legislation got that specific one into the books so that it would then become a controlled substance, correct?
Yes.
And so I imagine that was really fastly evolving.
Yes. I mean, I was a member of the state's Controlled Substances Advisory Committee that would provide recommendations to the legislature to include in the Controlled Substances Act. And every year for this time from the late teens to the early 20s, it seemed like every year we were adding things. They did eventually make some changes where relatedness became, if it wasn't changed enough, it was still covered. But it was an evolving process. And what we would see in the deaths that we saw related to fentanyl and fentanyl analogs also changed. And
with that, also peer review literature as to the effects of fentanyl, correct?
I would assume so.
That would make. Are you kind of hesitate? I would assume so.
Well, I mean, yeah, the peer-reviewed literature is evolving all the time, and so I don't know if there's a specific thing you're referencing. I don't know, but certainly, initially there was not a lot of. As the fentanyl supply changed from primarily pharmaceutical to primarily illicit, there in the early stages of that, there was not a lot of new literature to look at the postmortem levels in people that have died of this illicitly manufactured fentanyl as compared to the different ways that people used to take it as a diverted pharmaceutical before.
And that's exactly where I was going, the postmortem. These levels that we've been discussing, Mr. Burmester asked you about the postmortem levels, and you received from NMS reference comments, correct?
Yeah, that's part of their report.
Correct. And do you recall what those numbers were in terms of ephemeral blood as it relates to accidental drug overdoses?
I don't recall specifically what the numbers were, but generally speaking, the levels that we see in accidental overdose deaths from fentanyl, overlap the levels that are seen as described with, prescription usage.
And part of the reason for that, going back to the literature, is that there is no, I'm trying to find the right words for it. There's no set number, universal number that the medical community can attribute in terms of what becomes lethal, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the reason for that, or part of the reason, and add to this, is both the individual's own use, prior use, if any.
Yes.
Perhaps the toxicity or rather the amount of fentanyl in it, correct?
The dose.
In the dose.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The potency of that dose, correct?
Fentanyl is going to be relatively equipotent, but the fentanyl analogs may have different potencies.
Okay. A fixed fatal threshold? Does that sound?
Yeah, there isn't one.
Okay. You were discussing the ratio of fentanyl with norfentanyl with Mr. Burmester. Do you recall that?
Yes.
I got lost, to be frank.
Not surprising. I'm not always good at explaining as I'd like.
No, I think it was just going over my head. But tying it together with the postmortem literature out there and this ever-evolving world that unfortunately we're dealing with now with fentanyl, is there any literature on how that ratio can be affected that you're aware of?
I'm not aware of any specific literature that looks at the ratio of fentanyl to norfentanyl in determining, is it a cause of death? Is it a recent, a one-time use or multiple time use? I'm not aware of any literature that discusses that. There certainly has been some literature added over the years to discuss comparing, for example, the amount of fentanyl seen in the heart to that seen in a peripheral site. We call it like something like from the femoral vein to try and assess, things, or looking at other what we would call substrates, other sample types, fluid from the eye, testing the liver, urine, other things of that nature.
Let's talk about that. We discussed this when we spoke. You talked about things that looking back, you could have done.
Yes.
Could you explain to the jury some of those?
Sure. There is, I guess they say hindsight is always 20/20, but you can certainly, there are a number of things that are in the literature now suggesting that you might gain additional information if you test, for example, urine, which is not something that medical examiner's office routinely does in any case, because what's in the urine is simply a reflection of what has gone on before, and what we need to know is what's in the blood, what's in their system circulating at the time they die. So we don't routinely test that. There is some suggestion that can help you sort out how quickly or not quickly a given death related to fentanyl might have occurred. And then there's been other evaluation of other substances like fluid from the eye, what we call vitreous fluid, as well as liver, and looking at both of those as a means of perhaps augmenting the understanding of what's going on in the blood as well. When you take something, for example, by mouth, it goes through, down into your stomach, it gets absorbed, and then anything that gets absorbed goes through your liver before it goes anywhere else. And so an oral ingestion, in theory, might show up as a higher level in the liver than if it's taken IV or something in some other method. So there are other things we could do that would certainly, potentially help our understanding of how the fentanyl played out in Mr. Richins' case.
And you had also mentioned in our discussion, the brain, the heart, and maybe you mentioned blood. Are those also helpful? Looking back again, hindsight.
Yeah. So the brain, there's good literature that suggests the brain takes up fentanyl, and that is the cause of both the central nervous system and the respiratory depression. It's interacting with opioid receptors in the brain. There's not any published literature that I'm aware of that talks about what a given level in the brain would mean. Same with other solid organs. There's starting to be some literature discussing what a liver level might mean, but I'm not aware of any other specific organ sampling sites that might add light to that.
What about hair follicles?
Hair testing in the setting of drug use is primarily used as a means of evaluating drug use over time. Drugs do get taken up into the hair. And when we collect samples to send for hair testing, which pretty much we only do when we're requested to, but you tie off a bundle of hair. They want usually about a centimeter, so a little under half an inch bundle of hair. And we tie it off at the roots, cut it off, and then that gets sent to the lab, and they take sections of it starting at the root going back to see, based on how fast hair grows, how long has this person been exposed to the substance.
And you indicated unless you're requested, I imagine, for example, law enforcement.
Yes.
Okay. That wasn't done in this case.
That was not done in this case.
Now, as we heard, Ms. Richins, she indicated that Eric was not using fentanyl, correct?
Correct.
And there was, going back to the initial conversation or the initial testimony regarding the different categories, when you're trying to really determine what to put down on the death certificate, one of the unanswered question was, well, was he using, correct?
Yeah, that was part of it, certainly.
And in our prior discussions, you've indicated that, at times individuals didn't tell family, correct?
But that would be not uncommon, yes.
Okay. And certainly in this case, a hair follicle test, if it had been requested of your office, you would have sent it out.
We would. I don't know, and I think as I told you, I don't know what the literature says about hair follicle testing for fentanyl specifically, whether that's a useful endeavor or not. I don't know.
Fair enough. Certainly it wasn't asked of you, and certainly you didn't get the results back.
No.
Now, had that been done, had you gotten the results back and it did show long-term, that certainly would have played into your determination as to the manner of death, correct?
Objection calls for speculation. The testimony has been.
Yeah, why don't we have it? Mr.
Oh my goodness, Mr. Burmeister, I like your objections. You have great objections, but like you get up. You're supposed to just get up from your chair and say objection, not just like run up. Objection. All right, let's see if we can zoom.
I do not know.
You are not aware of a hair follicle test in your experience being done for fentanyl.
I am not.
Okay, you don't know if it can be done.
I do not know.
Had a hair follicle test just for any drug, including fentanyl, any just hair follicle test to be sent out to see if there's any type of drug use whatsoever, your office would have done that, correct?
Objection.
Overruled.
If we were requested to, that's certainly not something we would ever routinely do.
Absolutely no, and I'm not implying that. And to be fair, the reason you wouldn't do that is because your office is tasked with what's at hand, which is what do you have in front of you to determine the manner and cause of death, correct?
Correct. Why is this person dead right now?
Correct.
As opposed to some other time?
And in terms of your checklist, the hair follicle just doesn't come in terms of what you do, correct?
I mean, it can or it could in theory, but yeah, mostly no.
But if it were to be requested of you, you would or could do it.
We could.
Objection. I think the answer was for this particular.
What's the objection, Mr. Burmeister? Asked and answered.
Asked and answered, and calls for speculation.
Sustained. Okay, ask a different question.
So I'm going to go back with all that in mind. If you send out a hair follicle test, is your practice generally when you receive the results of said hair follicle test to use those said results in your determination of whether or not to change a manner of death?
They would be part of, all the information that we look at to come up with our final cause and manner of death.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Fair. Mr. Burmeister asked you about the sequence of items that were ingested or not ingested. Do you recall that?
Yes.
You indicated that there's simply not enough information at hand to be able to determine that, correct?
Yeah, not just from this case. In forensic toxicology, generally, you can't tell when something was taken just based on a number.
And that's what I wanted to make clear, whether it was just in this case or just generally.
Generally, you can do that.
And that means that there are no tests or nothing else that you can go back and do to make that determination, correct?
Correct.
Bear with me, I'm almost done. Okay. Now, in your involvement in this case, something unusual did occur in this case in terms of the investigation, correct? In terms
You'd have to be more
I'm
specific.
sorry, yes, I will.
Yeah.
In terms of
talking about.
I'm going to refer.
We're about to find out.
Yeah, I apologize. Poor question. I'll start all over. We saw.
Mr. Burmeister, hey, what are we talking about? Is that an objection? That's not nice. Wait for the dude to finish his question.
your case notes.
Yes.
And there you spoke with one law enforcement officer, correct?
Yes.
Now, you also received other communications from other law enforcement officers, correct?
Just FYI, you can't see him right now, but there is a gentleman behind him. This dude right here, he is apparently he is law enforcement, and he is one of the lead detectives on here. And I'm not sure which one he is, but he's been sitting in the courtroom making notes and stuff like that. As you can tell already, if you haven't already seen, the defense is going after law enforcement for the lack of investigation. So that will play out sprinkled throughout their case in chief here.
Poor question. I'll start all over. We saw your case notes.
Yes.
And there you spoke with one law enforcement officer, correct?
Yes.
Now, you also received other communications from other law enforcement officers, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And do you recall being invited to a meeting to have a discussion about this case?
Yes.
And do you recall if the DEA was involved in that case?
I believe so.
And other prosecutors, correct?
I believe so, yes.
As well as other law enforcement agencies, correct?
I don't know.
And that was unusual in your practice.
It's not common. It happens, but not commonly.
Okay. No further questions, Judge. Thank you so much, Doctor.
Mr. Burmester, within the scope of cross, please. Oh, my apologies, maybe not yet.
Apologies,
Do you have some more, sir?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Did they bring you in to try to convince you to change your determination? Is this a Karen Reed case where me and Jeff should have gone in there and done it? We'll bring you to all these agencies and have you talk to all these law enforcement people, and will they change your mind? Now, that wasn't implied, but that's just me making speculation. Let's see if they're done with the cross.
We're good, Judge. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Mr. Burmester.
Just trying to figure out this meeting you said.
Redirect.
Is it the one you testified earlier when you got a call from law enforcement?
I believe so. From my notes that were in the log that I looked at, I was invited to a meeting. It was my recollection, it was some sort of virtual meeting. I don't know if it was WebEx or Zoom or whatever. And I believe it was with Mr. Hemingway's computer, but there were other people in the room who were introduced to me, but I don't recall exactly who was.
You don't know who that was?
I don't know. I couldn't get.
And when defense counsel says the DA, presumably the Salt Lake DA was not interested in this case. DEA.
Oh, yeah, I don't recall.
DEA.
I misunderstood that. I thought I was asked DA as well.
So my apologies. I want to make sure I don't involve any confusion here. Would you please clarify what this testimony is?
I think you've said you received notice to attend a virtual meeting and law enforcement was there.
Yes.
And you don't know who specifically in law enforcement was there.
Besides Mr. Hemingway, no.
And this was the day before Corey Richins called.
That's what the log says. Yeah, I don't have any recollection of that specifically.
Hydrocodone doesn't look like this M30 you talked about, imprint of M30.
No, I've not seen any counterfeit pills made to look like hydrocodone pills.
Okay. In this case, there were no traces. That is, you testified there was a lot of fentanyl in the blood.
Yes.
And there was no traces of anything else related to fentanyl.
In the blood, yes, correct.
These other things you talked about, urine, vitreous, liver, brain, heart, blood, none of those, based on your understanding of the literature, et cetera, would give you a definitive forensic proof of long-term use or not long-term use.
Definitively, no.
I have no more questions.
Mr. Ellis, anything further for Dr. Christensen?
Yes, Judge. 1 second. I apologize. We're good. I apologize, Judge. Thank you so much. Thank you, Doctor.
Is this witness released, counsel?
Yes.
Yes.
You're free to go, sir. Thank you. Please watch your step.
All right, that is the end of the testimony of Dr. Christensen. So I said, okay, why? Why do we have this doctor? And he did reiterate all of the things that Dr. Ullman said, right? There were a couple of small other little things, but I guess maybe because the transcript between him and Corey that had to be brought in. I'm not specifically sure why, but I mean, she was inquiring about the death of her husband. Is that nefarious or not? Who knows? Just some general things that we learned. Could there possibly be some other tests that they could have done to make a determination of whether or not Eric Richins was a longtime user or abuser of illicit drugs? Answer is yes. But it's not definitive because that's what he just said on recross or redirect. So it's not definitive that you would be able to determine. I mean, it would give signs, but you can't say for sure. We talked about the fentanyl that was in his system was an illicit fentanyl. It was not a prescribed fentanyl. So could it be possible that the M30s that Robert Crozier sold to Carmen that gave to Kouri, could those have been fentanyl instead of hydrocodone? Could be. They also talked about the allergic nature and could somebody have an allergic reaction to opioids? He said definitely yes, and that hives was one of the presents that you had an allergic reaction to. And we do know that Eric did have hives when it came to the breakfast sandwich. So that was definitely a hit for the prosecution. Again, it's his death is undetermined because they don't know whether or not he did or he didn't take anything. They're not there, so they don't know. They don't know if he was a longtime user. They just don't know. They don't have enough information. So that is where we're going to stop for the moment. I'm going to go ahead and download this, and we'll pick it up when we get back. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching Legalese 123. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe for more content.